Very happy to be here today with one of our licensed agents, HWG International, and very happy to be here today to introduce the Nauru Economic and Climate Resilience Citizenship Program. So the Nauru Economic and Climate Resilience Citizenship Program was launched in October last year at the COP29 forum, which is a global forum to bring together countries to discuss and agree a way forward to tackle climate change. So the Nauru Economic and Climate Resilience Citizenship Program was launched at COP29 last year. The focus of this was on raising funds or climate financing, raising funds to address climate change. And that is why the program exists, because Nauru as a country is facing an existential crisis. The government needs to raise funds to help them to address this. And with limited resources, the innovative option of launching a citizenship program was an obvious choice. So many of you will obviously be wondering, where is Nauru? Many of you may not have heard of the country before the citizenship program was launched. In fact, many people that I talk to have never heard of the country before. The country, and that is understandable once you learn a little bit more, the country is actually the world's third smallest country. It has a population of only 12,000 people. You can probably fit the entire population into an apartment building in Beijing. I think it is only the only two countries that are smaller are the Vatican City and Monaco. But that being said, they have a very rich history, and they once were the wealthiest country in the world per capita because of the rich mining resources that they had on the island. Where is Nauru exactly? Nauru is on the equator, and if you draw a line between Australia and New Zealand and then go directly north until you hit the equator, that is where you will find the island. Being on the equator, it has a very stable climate. The temperature stays around 30 degrees all year round, very similar to Singapore, but without the high levels of humidity. On the island, they speak two languages. They speak a native Nauruan language, and they also speak English, and the currency is Australian dollar. So the Nauru economy, as I mentioned earlier, it was once famed for its phosphate resources, and it once was the wealthiest country in the world. Now they are looking to diversify their economy. So looking at options around fishing, they have a very rich marine resource. They are exploring options around tourism. And of course, with the Economic and Climate Resilience Citizenship Program and the funds that we raise, they are also exploring how they can become more of a climate tech innovation hub. And a lot of this is to do with what they are trying to do to address climate change. And they have an initiative called the Higher Ground Initiative, which is to relocate 90% of the residents to the top side of the island. That is because of rising sea levels. And in doing so, they need to actually develop new communities with new technology, cost-effective technology that integrate the communities in a sustainable way. So it's very exciting what the country is trying to do. And with the citizenship program, actually this is a unique opportunity for global citizens to partner with the government to help them address these challenges. So many of you will be asking, what are the benefits about the Nauru program? Why should we be interested in Nauru citizenship? So I think there are a couple of key things that are really important. Firstly, as we mentioned, this is a contribution to helping a country address climate change, and your contribution will actually have a material impact on their ability, given the small size of the country. And of course there are many benefits to you as well. From a citizenship perspective, we have a relatively low cost point. So the contribution amount is relatively lower, especially compared to the Caribbean. In addition, we have a very fast processing time, which lasts for approximately 3 to 4 months. Now, at this stage, we don't have the first approvals yet, but they will be submitted to Cabinet for approval within the next week, either this Friday or next Monday, which is very exciting. And this whole process has only taken 3 months to get to where we are today. So we are confident that we can continue to meet the 3 to 4 months. So in terms of the countries that Nauru's passport has visa-free access to, there's access to over 88 countries. So this includes the United Kingdom, the UAE, Singapore, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Guam and Saipan, as a few interesting countries that you can travel to visa-free. In addition, when you apply for Nauru citizenship, you can apply with all of your family members. So the application can, with some restrictions, include your children, your parents, your grandparents and grandchildren, as well as brothers or sisters. Of course, this will impact the cost of your application depending on the number of family members, but overall, as the number of family members increases, this is quite an attractive option relative to some of the competitors from a cost perspective if you bring large numbers of family in the application. And of course, being able to include a sibling is something that is not very common in terms of different citizenship programs. In addition, we allow for the application to be sponsored. So the contribution amount can come from either another family member, it can come from a family trust, or it can be from a business. For example, it might be a business wanting to sponsor one of their executives to help them travel and do business more freely. In addition, there is no requirement to travel to the country in order to get citizenship. So the entire process can be done remotely. So if anyone is interested in applying and wants to understand what the process looks like, firstly, it's important to engage with a licensed agent such as HWG International, who is able to provide you advice on the various citizenship options and find an appropriate solution such as Nauru for you. Once when you work with a licensed agent, they will guide you on the application requirements and support you in terms of gathering all the required documentation. We expect this process to take approximately 1 month, just for your awareness. Once all of the documentation is obtained, we do some initial due diligence just to understand the eligibility and make sure that the application can be supported in the first instance, to make sure that the application is eligible. At that point, the application fee and due diligence fee is required to be paid. Once we receive the funds for that, we will formally accept the application and issue a formal acceptance letter. At that point, we will then go and conduct in-depth due diligence to make sure that all of the information we have collected is correct and verifiable. In the due diligence process, we work with the Nauru Police, we work with the Nauru Financial Intelligence Unit, and we also work with a number of third-party due diligence providers who will conduct background verification on the information that has been provided. Once we have all of the information collected and we're able to form a profile of the applicant. The applicant will be required to undergo an interview. The interview can be done remotely, and it can be done in whichever language you're comfortable conducting the interview in, such as in Chinese, or in Arabic, or in French, or whatever the language is. Once the interview has been concluded, we will write a recommendation through to the government, and if the government have any further questions, they may come back, but otherwise it will go through to Cabinet for their approval in principle. Once the approval is obtained, then the contribution amount is required to be paid to the government. Once the contribution amount is received, then the passport forms can be completed, the certificate of citizenship is granted, and the passport is printed. And this process then takes about another month. And overall, the due diligence process and recommendation phase will take between 1 to 2 months. So this gives you a better understanding of the process and the various key milestones and timeframes required from application through to granting your citizenship. So in terms of the contribution amount for the main applicant, this starts at $105,000 US. To include a family of up to 4, the contribution increases slightly to 110, and then for a family of 5 or above, the contribution amount is $115,000 US. If a sibling is included in the application amount, there is an additional fee of $15,000 US as well. While it's not on the slides, the application fee starts at $25,000 and goes up to $27,000 for a family of 4, or $29,000 for a family of 5 or above. And there is a $10,000 US due diligence fee for the main application, and a smaller due diligence fee for any other family members or sponsors of the application. In terms of the eligibility criteria, the main applicant needs to be at least 18 years old, need to be of good character, ideally have no criminal record, although some minor criminal record is okay, as long as the applicant has not been in prison for over 1 year. Of course, we need to make sure that the applicant has the sufficient funds for the contribution, and is able to provide police clearance from both their country of birth and the country where they are currently residing or recently residing. We do have some restrictions on who can apply in terms of their citizenship or their residency. For example, we currently don't accept applicants from Russia, Iran, North Korea, or Myanmar. So finally, firstly, I want to thank you all for listening in to this presentation. And in terms of a final comment from me, I just want to reiterate in terms of the Nauru Economic and Climate Resilient Citizenship Program overall is a very attractive proposition because of the cost, the fast processing time, the family inclusion, the no need to travel to the island, and some of the other benefits that I've talked about today. So please think about this in terms of a citizenship option, and do speak to HWG International for advice on your various options, including Nauru citizenship. And importantly, don't forget that this is an opportunity to make a material impact for a country in terms of how they address some of their climate challenges that they face. And that contribution will go a long way.
So
the requirements are quite similar to the Caribbean. So yes, we do thorough due diligence on the individuals. We do need to understand how you've generated your wealth, where the money is coming from, and is the person a good character and not going to be any risk to national security for Nauru, not going to damage the reputation. And that is really important for us, that we maintain the reputation of the country and we maintain the integrity of the passport so that we can continue to provide visa-free access to many strategic destinations.
Mr. Edward, CEO 呢谈到 so the next question is the Nauru citizenship is a one-time investment or not? Any extra fees for the following years?
Time where you may be required to pay after the initial application is if you want to add family members afterwards. So for example, you have
New baby.
a child that was included in the application, and then they had a child, so a new grandchild. After the citizenship was granted, you can pay a fee to have them added as a post-application approval.
Okay. So there's also one friend gave suggestion that it's not a question, it's a suggestion that he said that Nauru now can develop its economy with focusing on the marine oil, the transit trade, and the ocean port development and the tourism. It's good suggestion.
Yes, no, that is what we want to do, and that is what we want to help the country to achieve. So they've recently finished their port infrastructure, and so this opens up a lot of new opportunities for them from a trade perspective. With the funds raised through the Citizenship Program, hopefully we are able to help them expand their economy. I think there are lots of opportunities in the ecotourism space. I think there are a lot of opportunities in the fishing industry, and there are potentially opportunities in the mining industry as well.
My question is, apart from the criminal factor, any other reason that the application will be refused or rejected?
There are some reasons, possibly because of the country where you're a citizen of or residing. As I mentioned, we don't accept applications from Russian or Iranian, Myanmar or North Korea. Other than that, there aren't really any major reasons. If, for example, an applicant has had a visa refused before, that may be a reason to reject the application, but it really depends why that was rejected, and it will be considered on a case-by-case basis. For anything that you are not sure about and want to get guidance on or advice on, I would recommend asking your agent, and the agent can approach our office for advice, and we will do our best to guide you through the certain scenario and whether that is likely to be approved or not, to give you some certainty before an application is actually submitted.
So the next question is, after the applicant gets the passport of Nauru, how can they verify that this passport is genuine or not?
If the applicant wants to get comfort that this has come from the government and has been issued by the government, there are a couple of options. We can verify that, or the applicant can verify that with the Nauru Passport Office, and we can facilitate that. Or another option might be to actually collect the passport directly from one of the Nauru embassies or international missions. And that can be arranged, again, on a case-by-case basis, depending on the needs or concerns of the applicant.
So is it possible for Chinese applicants to collect passport from embassy in Beijing, or currently not possible?
I believe it will be possible. We need to have a discussion with the ambassador to see if it's okay to do that, but I believe it will be possible.
Okay, so the next question from the online friends is the passport obtained through investment pay pass or if through investment way, the benefit of the passports are completely same with the benefit of local Nauru citizen or different. For example, can they take the government rule, or can they work in Nauru? Can they enjoy the related treatment offered by Australia and New Zealand to Nauru local citizens in terms of like work permit, like immigration opportunities to Australia and New Zealand? Or maybe.
So in terms of the rights of citizenship through the Citizenship Program, mostly the rights are the same, although there are some slight differences. And this is not because of citizenship itself, but it's more to do with some of the indigenous practices on the island and indigenous law on the island. So in order to own land, you need to be a native Nauruan, and in order to run for parliament, you need to be a native Nauruan. Other than that, yes, you can hold a government role outside of being a member of parliament. You can vote, and you can work in Nauru. You don't need to be a Nauruan citizen to work in Nauru, but yes, of course you can. And yes, I believe that you have similar benefits in terms of the relationship with Australia and New Zealand. And one of the interesting developments recently that came from the Pacific Island Forum was the announcement of visa-free travel to New Zealand for Nauru citizens if they already have a visa to Australia. So it's like a quasi visa-free access to New Zealand, which I think is interesting. And obtaining a visa to Australia is relatively straightforward for Nauruans. They do it very often, do it very frequently. It's all done online, and that takes about 2 weeks to get your visa.
Edward.
Interesting question from the audience is that because now they know that the contributions are being used for higher ground initiatives and to help on the survival of Nauru in the long term, which is wonderful. But the question is, given the rate of how things are changing, will the island disappear in the midterm? And if that happens, does it mean everything is void?
So I don't think the island is at risk of disappearing anytime soon. So the water levels are rising at a faster rate on the equator or around where Nauru is. But they're forecast to rise, I think, by about 60 centimetres by the year 2050. So certainly, within the next 25 years, it will increase, and you'll see increased risk of flooding at low-lying sea levels. But longer term, actually, the island has enough elevation. In fact, it goes up to around, I think, 40, 50 metres above sea level at the top part, which is a plateau. So I don't see there as a risk of the island disappearing in the short term. It's not as vulnerable, while it is very vulnerable to climate change, it is not as vulnerable as a country such as Maldives, which is disappearing at a faster rate. To travel to Nauru through the application process.
And afterwards.
Or afterwards. So visiting the island is entirely optional, but of course I'm sure they would love newly appointed citizens to visit. The other interesting thing is Nauru actually has its own airline. So even for a population of 12,000 people, they have their own airline, and they do have regular flights to and from the island. I think there are 3 flights in and out per week. Way to get more information about the program. First step would be to visit our website. The website is ecrcp.gov.nr. There is a brochure available in 4 different languages, including Chinese and English. So that is a good starting point. And if you want any more information, or you want to explore whether an application can be supported, then I would encourage you to talk to Harry and the team at HWG International